What's up, guys? Shane here again. Today I wanted to bring you a video really about some core cards that you should be crafting as a new player. So this will go through, I'm kind of going to free flow a little bit here, but we're going to go through all the different regions. I'm going to pick out maybe 5-ish cards for each region that will see plenty of play and are really safe early crafting cards. Because a lot of times, you're overwhelmed with how many cards there are. You have so many shards that you don't know exactly what to spend on. And if you craft very specific things, you might be kind of locked into one or two decks that could be used in. So I'm going to go through and kind of show you, multiple different cards that could fit in plenty of different decks. So you can really try to get the most out of your early shards that you have. And, the idea here will be that you can just really maximize your profit in the game. And this game's already so generous, and you can check out my previous videos where I kind of talk about the economics of the game and how generous the game is. But I want to just give you some tips as someone who knows all the cards, just for new players who are coming in and they're unsure what to craft, so I can find some key cards that will find play in multiple different archetypes, multiple different regions and decks. As always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the channel. Comment below, help us get some notice and put some cred on the name, and make sure you warning shot the Nexus. Okay, so warning shot the like button. What did I say? The Nexus? So let's go through. Bilgewater first. So I have it filtered here to just commons and rares. So again, commons will only cost 100 shards. Rares will cost 300 shards. So I'll show that real quick for a rare if I can find one. So rare will cost 300 shards. Commons will cost 100, and you'll have plenty of wild cards as well. So this will really be for just looking at those two rarities. Obviously, there's some champions that fit in a lot more regions than others, and a lot more decks than others. But I'm just going to go through and pick out some key common and rare cards that are very useful cards. So let's start with just Bilgewater here. So first off, Jagged Butcher, super solid one drop. He's just consistent. 2/2 body on one is really good, and the possibility of being a 3/3 if you have the plunder effects, or even mid and late game, he has extra value. Jagged Butcher will fit into a lot of different Bilgewater decks. Very, very safe to craft here for Jagged Butcher, for sure. So I would say Jagged Butcher. Fortune Croaker is another. This one's actually brand new in the most recent expansion. Very solid card here as well. It's a 2-drop, 2/3. It has a play ability, which is deal 1 damage to itself and an ally to draw a card. So this can be seen in multiple different popular decks. Currently, right now, it's seen in TF Go Hard, which is a very annoying deck, and another annoying deck, which is Soraka Tahm Kench. So two main decks it's already really well used in, but honestly, just card draw is so powerful in any card game where, cards are very limited. So this card is a very safe and very, very strong craft. Going down from there, let's take a peek, see what else we like. Petty Officer has had some nerfs and had a buff and then a nerf and then back to the nerf. So we're stuck here at this version, but this card is still a really, really strong rare, very solid card that could be seen in a lot of different decks. So it's a 3-drop, 3/1, which are weak stats, but when you play it, you either get to summon a random 1-cost follower, which you can get very good ones or some poor ones, or you can just summon a keg. So a deck where you're using a lot of spells, this card has a lot of value because you get a keg from it, but it also has the value of just being able to pump out an additional 1-drop, which is really strong. So as I go down from there, like I said, that one's very solid. Island Navigator is also a very solid card. It's a 4-drop, 2/4 that has Scout, which is strong, but it also summons a random 1-drop when you play it, and it grants that follower Scout. So Grant, remember, is a permanent effect. Give would be temporary for the round. So this will make 2 Scouts on your board for 4 mana. Very, very strong card. Very solid card. So that's 4 there. Yeah, and at the bottom here, there's nothing too more useful. So we'll stick to those 4 as really, really safe crafts that will be seen in multiple different decks for Bilgewater. And maybe I'll do a second video with both epics and champions. But for now, like I said, I'll keep it to commons and rares. The only other, maybe one that's pretty consistent as well, is the deckhand is a 2-drop, 2/2 that will summon a powder keg every time it's played. So any deck where you kind of have any spells that are going to be dealing damage, this is a solid add. You definitely want to have a Dreadway. So that fits into a lot of different Dreadway deckhand. I mean, that fits into a lot of different Bilgewater decks. Let's move on there from moving to Demacia. And now, obviously, Bilgewater and Targon were the 2 regions that were added since release, so you might not have as many cards there. So you might have some of the cards already for Demacia, but I will go through still and pick out, like I said, still filtered to commons and rares here. So Fleet Feather Tracker is definitely the number 1. I mean, the card's amazing. It's a 2/1. It's a 1-drop, and when you summon another unit, you grant this thing a challenger. So it's a really strong early curve that is consistent. We'll be able to pick apart one of their important drops. Very, very strong card. Ranger's Resolve is another really strong card. It grants or gives all allies tough this round just for 1 mana at burst speed, so you can really maximize your trade. And in a region like Demacia where you have mostly combat tricks and mostly just big units that are smacking back and forth. Tough is very, very strong because it reduces the amount of damage you take from all sources by 1 for the turn. Bright Steel Protector is another one for sure. So this is a 2-drop. It's a 3/2. It grants or it gives barrier for a round to another ally. So on curve with Fleet Feather, it's probably one of the strongest curves. If you attack on turn 2, you play Fleet Feather on turn 1. On turn 2, you play the Bright Steel Protector. Now your Fleet Feather has Challenger and barrier on turn 2. Absolutely insane strength there. A new card here is Sharpsight. Sharpsight's actually seeing a lot of play. It's common as well. It's just give an ally +2/+2, and it can block units with Elusive this round, which isn't as important. Elusive hasn't been everywhere, but a burst speed +2/+2 has been very, very powerful. Single combat's obviously a core card, but you should have started with that, so that's a solid card there. Going through here, Concerted Strike is another one that's probably something you should craft. So Concerted Strike is a 5-cost spell, fast speed. You pick an enemy, and then you're own 2 allies, and then the 2 allies strike that enemy. So they don't strike back and forth, so it's not like single combat where both units take damage. This is just your 2 allies strike an enemy, so it's just a direct removal spell. It's really, really strong. So that's another one that I think is very worthwhile. And, probably the last one I would pick is, even still, Radiant Guardian has seen a nerf. She used to be a 5/5, but she is still a 5-drop 4/5. Any type of stall deck, so this is a little bit of a different pick here for me because a lot of times I'm focusing for Demacia. You're just kind of just mid-range deck, but this card is really, really good at counter aggro. So you just, if you're playing a deck that's burning you down, you just make sure you get a unit to die, proc this ability, and then she gets summoned with Lifesteal and Tough. And Lifesteal is when she deals damage, she heals your Nexus for that amount. So that's pretty much it for Demacia. We'll move on to Freljord here. Freljord, there's a lot. I mean, Omen Hawk is probably the number 1 here. He's just when I'm summoned, grant the top 2 allies in your deck +1/+1. It's just one of the themes of Freljord. I went over this in a previous video, but buffing your own deck is super strong. This is a 1-drop who just serves as a chump blocker, but will give you units, and if you draw those units on curve, you'll have really powerful units, really strong. Definitely another one is the Avarician Sentry. He's a 2-drop, 2/1, last breath, draw a card. So if you're from Hearthstone, like the Loot Hoarder that had Death Rattle for draw a card is 2, pretty much the same card here, and we all know that card is amazing because, like I said, card draw is just so important. A newer card is Troll Chant. This is a really great combat trick. It's a 2-cost burst speed spell, also just a common here, but you give an ally +2 health, and then you reduce an enemy's attack by 2. So you can do this to the same trade to essentially get a 4-point swing of health, or you can do this to 2 different trades. So if you have 3 units attacking, they have 3 units defending, you can both save a unit by giving it extra health and save a different unit by reducing the enemy's attack. And for 2 mana at burst speed, you can get a lot of combat value out of that. Very, very solid. Very, very solid card. I would say that Kindly Tavern Keeper is definitely up here. The Kindly Tavern Keeper just heals your Nexus or an ally for 3 health, which is super strong. There's not a lot of healing in Freljord. There's a few cards, maybe like 4 or so, but this is a super strong 3-drop, good stats, on curve, and has a good heal effect. Definitely say that's one you want to keep. And then as you get further down, you get to a lot more ramp style things. Harsh Winds is pretty consistent. Like we said, Frostbite's a really strong mechanic, and 6 burst speed is a lot. But you get the Frostbite 2 enemies, so late in the game you can completely stall out. So if you're looking for something that stalls, that's really good. And there's some really powerful stuff like They Who Endure. But I think the last one I'll highlight is really Avalanche. It's a rare card here. It's just deal 2 damage to everybody. So it's kind of like Hellfire from Warlock, which is I think 4 costs, deal 3 to everybody. And if I'm getting anything wrong from Hearthstone, I apologize. It's been a very long time. But this is a 2 damage to everybody spell. Doesn't hurt the Nexus like Hellfire used to, but this still does hurt your hero in Hearthstone. But this wipes the board, so it's a really strong card. All right, let's move on to Ionia. Ionia is a very interesting region. We've gone over it a few different times before in other videos, but definitely some interesting cards. So we'll go through here a little bit, and they haven't been seen a lot, but Nopify is a really strong new card. It's a essentially like Deny, which is stopping a spell or skill. This only stops fast or slow spells that cost 3 or less. So it's specific, but it's a 2 cost, so it's a really strong anti-magic type card. Very important for the region identity for sure. Tasty Feyfolk is a really, really strong common as well. 3-drop 4/2, but it has lifesteal, so very, very beneficial for your stall decks. Super great. Concussive Palm is probably one of my favorite cards in the game. It's a rare, costs 4, but you stun an enemy and you summon a Tailed Dragon, so it's very defensive. So you get to, as they're attacking, you can stun one of their attacking units, send it back to the board. So it sends it, essentially kicks it out of combat, and they can't attack if they get the attack token back. And when you do that, you also summon a 3/2 drop. who has the added effect of if he gets recalled, he transforms back into a concussive palm. That's not seen a whole lot. There is units that recall other units, so there is ways to do that, but most of the time it's just you're spending 4 mana for a stall and a unit that can block something. Super strong. Super, super strong card. Deep Meditation is a very safe card to build as well. It's a rare card, but it costs 2 less if you cast 2 spells in the previous round and you draw 2 spells from your deck. So it costs 5 or 3 mana at burst speed, and you draw spells. So a lot of times you're building very spell-heavy decks in Ionia, and you're trying to spam out different spells, install the game until you get to late game, and Deep Meditation will be seen in any style of that deck. So there's plenty of different variations of that deck, and Deep Med is always in that deck. For sure. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we'll highlight Yone as well. Yone is now a champion in League of Legends, if you know that. He wasn't previously, but he was in this game first. He's a 7-drop, 6/6. When you play him, you stun 2 enemies. So it's a really strong stall card. He's a pretty decent body for 7, but it's really strong when they're on offense and you get to stun 2 of their, you essentially shut down an attack round. Let's move on to Targon here. Targon, again, is one of the newer regions, so we've talked about this. There is endless good cards in Targon, but we'll definitely go with Hush. So Hush is a 2-cost burst speed. It just silences a unit for this round. So if they, I mean, the versatility of this card is probably the highest in the game. So essentially, if they have anything that has an effect that you don't like, you Hush it, you get to deal with it, even if they attack with the elusive unit. But the thing is, this can also silence champions for the round as well. So they attack with their annoying elusive Ezreal or Teemo. You silence it, and now you can block it with anything. Super strong. They buff their unit. You silence it. That buff goes away. They frostbite your own unit. You silence your own unit, and the frostbite goes away. There's just a lot you can do with Hush, so definitely has to make the list. Pale Cascade is another one that's only a common. This card will most likely receive a nerf at some point because of how much it's being played right now, but it's a 2-cost burst speed that gives an ally +2/+1, which is a solid buff, and then it has Nightfall, which if it's not the first card that you play this round, you will draw a card. So not only does it refresh your hand, but it's also a solid combat trick. Incredible card. Very much so incredible card. Going through here, I like all the Daybreak stuff is really strong, but Star Shaping is really, really good. So Star Shaping is a 5-cost burst spell. You get to invoke, which again is like Discover from Hearthstone, but it's a pick a Celestial card, and there's this group of Celestial cards that are preset. You get to pick one that costs 7 or more, but you also heal an ally or your Nexus for 5. So super strong, 5-cost burst speed, heal 5. Incredible. Last one I'm going to highlight here is this, because this card is 100%, seems like an epic card to me. Somehow it's only a rare, so I'll stop here for Targon, but this card is insane. It's a dragon, so it'll fit into any dragon deck. It also has Daybreak, so it fits into any Daybreak deck, which is a Leonis archetype, and it has Nightfall, so it can fit into Nightfall decks. And on top of that, it generates a Celestial and a Dragon with its Nightfall effect, so it fits into Celestial decks as well, or Invoke decks. So this thing fits everywhere, and it's a 7/7 with Fury, which is when it kills something, it gains +1/+1. So the Eclipse Dragon is 100% one of the safest crafts you can have. So if you listen to anything from this video, craft the Eclipse Dragon. Thing's crazy. Let's go to Noxus. So Noxus is super aggro heavy, and there's a lot going on in it. If you're trying to focus more on the aggro archetype, then there's which you probably should be, because that's what Noxus is good for. The Legion Saboteur is really good. Just a 1-drop 2/1. It's a common card. Every time it attacks, it deals damage to the enemy Nexus. So it's a way to get damage through consistently, which is really strong. It's a solid 1-drop. As you move on, House Spider is another super safe craft. So House Spider's a 2/2, but when it's summoned, you also get a 1/1 out of it. So you get 2 units and a 3/3 stats for just 2. Super valuable. And new players start with at least 2 Elise. So this card is very strong if you want to start making a Spider deck right away. Very good card. Culling Strike is one I'll highlight. It's a 3-mana rare spell that it kills a unit with 3 or less power, which can target multiple very key champions in this game. So this card is Chef's Kiss, extremely solid. Highly suggest that card for sure. Decimate is super good. It's a rare card. It's a 5-cost. It just deals 4 to the enemy Nexus. So again, if you're trying to rush, this is just consistent damage. Very strong card to have. And the last one I'll highlight is Crowd Favorite. Crowd Favorite is in a rush deck. You need to have a wide board, but it works really well when you're playing spiders and you play a lot of spiders. Essentially, he's a 4-drop who will get +1/+1 for each other unit you have. So a maximum, if you have 5 other units and that's your board is filled, because you only can have 6 units, and you play him, he will get +5/+5. So he'll be a 7/6 for 4 with Overwhelm. Super strong rush card. So very safe craft for a rare. Move on to Piltover and Zaun. Piltover and Zaun is, again, very memey, lots of science, lots of weird stuff. but we'll go through some of the important spells here. It's Thermogenic Beam is just a 0 cost, but really it's cost X, and X is how much damage you get to deal to one of your opponent's units, and you spend all your mana when you play it. Really solid removal for a rare. So very, very good card. Mystic Shot, just 2 mana, fast speed, 2 damage. Common, you can't go wrong. Just good old damage. Get excited, and again, I'm highlighting just key cards that have fit in multiple different decks. So these aren't the best cards in the region, they're just things that can fit everywhere. Get Excited is a 3 cost, deal 3 to something, but you have to discard a card first. So that will fit into a lot of decks. So that's something that I highly suggest crafting. And, you know, it's weird. Piltover and Zaun is definitely the weirdest faction, so it's hard to go through and really pick any particular cards because they just have so much going on. That's very awkward, and a lot of these cards just don't see any play because they're so specific to one deck. But the last one I'll highlight is actually this Funsmith. This Funsmith just got buffed. It's a 4-drop, 1/3. All your spells and skills deal 1 extra damage. So this right now is being seen in like 2 to 3 different decks, so it's actually pretty viable. So it's a pretty safe craft as far as if you really are like a spell heavy, you just want to blast things. Funsmith is pretty solid option. We're going to finish up with Shadow Isles, and I could go on and on about Shadow Isles. It's my favorite region by far. It has a ton of versatility, so I could pick literally hundreds of cards in this deck, or in this region, but I'll try to not do that. Hapless or Scat is just such a solid 1-drop. 1/1 with Last Breath, summon another 1/1. So it's 2 chump blockers. It fits the Spider archetype. It fits anything that you want to have lots of units so you can kill them to trigger effects. Hapless Aristocrat, 100%. Use him. This is probably, in my consideration, one of the best cards in the game. Stalking Shadows, it's relatively new. It's a 2-cost burst speed. You pick a follower from the top 4 cards of your deck. You draw that, and you get an ephemeral copy, which is like a copy that will die at the end of the turn or when it strikes. And it's 2 mana. You get 2 cards. They have to have a follower in the top 4 cards of your deck. So the only restriction on this card is you have to deck build correctly, where you need to have at least 22-ish followers to feel comfortable with constantly being able to hit this follower in the top 4 cards. But if you have that, this 100% belongs in your deck. The card is absolutely insane. So Stalking Shadows is probably the safest card that you could get from this. Excuse me. Doom Beast is another one. Relatively new, 3 cost. He has Nightfall, so if it's not the first card you played, then he gets a bonus. And his bonus is deal 2 to the opposing Nexus, but it's drained, so you heal 2 to your own Nexus. So with Stalking Shadows, he's incredible because you'll get 2 copies of him, so you can do that twice. So he fits in aggro decks that are trying to finish off, but he also fits really strongly in control decks that just want to sustain their Nexus health a little bit. Super safe card to build. Very, very strong. Going down here, Grasp of the Undying, super strong card. 5 cost, drain 3 from any unit. So again, drain is you deal the damage, but you heal yourself as well. Atrocity is another one that is a super strong card. It'll fit in a lot of different style decks. Could even fit into some aggro mid-range like rush style decks, but also fits very well into control decks. You essentially sacrifice one of your own units to deal its attack to anything, including your opponent's Nexus, which is just insane. And also, one of the starter decks that you get for logging in for 7 days in a row comes with Commander Ladros, who's an epic, and he works really well with Atrocity for that. So that's a solid option. And, you know, like I said, I could go on forever. I guess one other one I'll highlight real quick is just Vile Feast is a 2-cost fast speed spell that deals 1, drain 1 from a unit, so you get the healing effect back, and summons a spider. So guys, that's pretty much it right here. So that's all of the regions I just went through. There is tons of cards. If you guys like this style of video, please let me know. I'll gladly do it again. But that was, again, just to cover what we did. We did common cards and rare cards. Just the best, safest crafts for new players so they can figure out what cards they like and stuff that they will use consistently through multiple different decks. So some of just the strongest and most key cards from all those regions. Guys, if you liked the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment below so we can keep the content coming. And it's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving. Till next time.